All right. How's everyone feeling with the pace of the seminar? I'm not trying to overburden people with just going as hard as possible or overloading you with concepts, right? If you guys feel like the pace needs to change or we need to add or subtract some stuff, please let me know. I'm very happy to pivot. If we go a little bit off the outline that I wrote, that's totally fine. I'm still going to send it to you anyways, right? Okay, so the last hour, to summarize some of the key points, we talked about the principle of mechanical advantage and disadvantage, starting with our body position and having core principles of being in a well-structured position through our body so that our sword actions have more behind them, quite literally. We then started doing some basic stuff at the sword to feel whether or not we had advantage in a bind or in a specific action. And from there, we derived a common definition of strong and weak, where strong is having structural advantage, mechanical advantage over our opponent, defined as having control of the central line, having the good body position, and if possible, having the strong on the weak, although it's more than just this component. I see a hand, go for it.
Is there a term for neutral? So if you're not in the strong, but you're also not in the weak, you have a disadvantage or an advantage, or just...
The closest that I would use is Meyer talks about gleich, which is the same. Although that's generally talked about in the principle of vor und nach, although I would say that because strong, weak, vor und nach, as the rest of the 5 words kind of meld together in certain principles. They're distinct concepts, but they work together. If two people have the same idea and go for the same line at the same time, they will end in an unclear position. That is a moment of gleich, I would say. So yeah, for those who are Myrists, I see some trifectors in here, right? But yeah, so we talked about strong and weak. Now, the next question is, as we started thinking about the first hour, well, there's some times where I'm not sure, or maybe this position feels like it's right or it's not quite there, or I thought I had mechanical advantage, didn't quite have it. Now we're going to get into some funky physics and geometry together so we can learn about how that works. And the way that I define it and think about it, and the way that my coach James often thinks about it, is this idea of long versus short. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean like being as long as possible or as constricted as possible. That's part of it. We're going to explore a little bit more detail and a nuanced geometry physics definition of what that is. Sound good? By the way, I got a D- in physics 2 when I just barely graduated. So this is going to be like basic level physics. Don't ask me to do any math. All right. Jason, over here. In fairness, it was physics 2 at Carnegie Mellon University, so I don't know, maybe I still suck. Okay, so we're gonna talk about strong and weak and then extend that into understanding long and short, no pun intended there, right? So Jason, if you can get into a nice, well-structured Flug guard. All right, I just said the name, but what is the name of this guard? Plow, Flug, right? The low hanger, the guard of the plow, right? Very popular position and can be very useful, right? So in this case, let's say my sword is over here. Is Jason strong or is Jason weak relative to where my sword is? Strong, why? Yeah, right? He has control of the central line here. He has good body structure. I'm feeling if I press into that, that's driving right down into his structure. Jason has really strong plows. That's why I try to avoid them if all possible when I'm fencing him, right? What else makes this strong? Yeah, Emma, go for it.
His structure is such that it extends through the point at which contact would be made.
Yes, right? There's a point of extension here, right? So that what we're going to do for this first iteration is this game is called Find the Strong Point, right? And what I'm going to do is I have Jason in a guard like this. I'm going to take my sword and I'm just going to bind on the outside of the sword and I'm just going to gently press. This is not me trying to murder Howe into him and like knock him over. It's just trying to help him feel where he has that mechanical advantage, right? So if I just take right up on the sword here and I push here, do you feel like you have advantage here? Not particularly, right? There's some resistance. I'm going to drop down another couple of inches, maybe a little bit more. What if I drop down another couple inches down here? I'm not moving at all. That's rock solid, right? So that's a pretty strong point. Like if I bind on this or further down, I'm really trying to push into this. I'm not getting that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have people take a guard. You can either be plow or you can do the same thing in ox. If you go up into your ox and do the same thing, where if I just bind on here, not with the strong of the sword here, just like tip to tip, right? And just press a little bit. Do you feel like you have some advantage here? Is it collapsing? Maybe here, right? Go further down the sword. So find a partner where you were before. We'll do the go back to where you were clockwise. Grab a sword. One person holds a guard, the other one just tests the bind to see where that strong point is on the blade. Cool? Go for it. Okay. So this was a little bit of a weird request, right? Of like micro adjusting binds to see how things are, right? What did people kind of learn or find challenging from that exercise? Yes, Grant, go for it.
Lower guards versus higher guards. High guards, box, have a little less brace. So down here, you kind of had your hips and your legs that help sword and like brace your sword against. Up here, you're more just like your shoulder.
Interesting. So when you were when your sword was up in Ox, you felt like you had less brace than you did when you were down in Flug. Interesting. I would posit as we explore this further that might be true to an extent, but it's not as hard a truth as you might think it is.
It's more of just a subtle difference.
There's a subtle difference. Yeah, I see a hand over here. Cash, go for it. Just speak up for a little bit, please.
I'm just kind of adding on to that. When I was holding box positions or higher up positions, it could be very strong, but it's highly dependent on whether or not my angle line perfect. You know, whether or not I was like at the better angle. It was very hard to get the right angle. When I did have the right angle, it almost felt stronger than actually.
Interesting. So we felt like you had to have the right angle for it to be strong. Okay, Jason, can you train with me real quick? Oh yeah, Connor, go for it while you're.
Just one thought was like, as I kind of did before, right? The two Flugs and the two Oxes, and it was if my sword is on my non-dominant side, they have to go through my body to move me.
Yes.
So I was strong. If my sword is on my dominant side, they're tipping me over much more easily.
Right. So what I'm gaining from this conversation back and forth is that there's folks who are saying these are like general rules of like, generally you're stronger on this side, or hey, if I'm in my Ox is going to be a little bit structurally more collapsible than other things. There's nuances to that, right? And I would say that's safe to start at as a general point. But what we're going to explore is how nuanced and how careful we can get with this, right? So we're going to do this drill together. So I'm going to be in my Flug here, right? So Jason, you're going to test over here. You do have a nice press. That's just into the bind, right? Rather than sliding down, just press into the bind. Yeah, I don't have pressure here, right? I don't have it here. A little bit better. Okay, that's good. That's pretty good. All right, now what we're going to do this drill again. But what I want people to do is deliberately pick a guard, feel that bind, and then deliberately change something about your sword and body position, mainly your sword. So I'm here. Everyone agreed this is where I was before, right? For my Flug, right? Now I'm going to do this. Now do the same thing. Start from the top, right? Right? Again. That's where it was strong before. I don't feel I have a control here. Further down. Maybe not even as much. There, right? So again, we're going to start in a position and then do something deliberately to stay in the same guard, but then change the angle of your sword relative to your body, right? We're going to do that for a couple of minutes, and we're going to come back and debrief that concept. Sound good? Just really focus, pick one guard and micro adjust it. Okay, back to your positions, rotate, and we'll go for it.